In the quiet suburbs of Chicago, where the sprawling lawns of Lincoln Park met the hum of city life, Emily Harper stood at the edge of her life's most significant turning point. At 32, she had spent 6 years tethered to a man who never loved her, Ryan Mitchell. Their marriage was a hollow shell, built on her family's wealth and her naive devotion. Emily had given him everything: a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, a fleet of luxury cars, and a senior role at her father's tech conglomerate, Harper Innovations. She poured her heart into being the perfect wife, believing love could thaw Ryan's cold indifference. But his heart was elsewhere, always drifting to Sophia Bennett, his childhood sweetheart. Emily's love was a one-sided battle fought in silence until she could no longer bear it. It was a rainy evening in April when Emily made up her mind to divorce Ryan. She sat in her sleek Mercedes, the engine purring softly as she navigated the slick streets of downtown Chicago. Her phone buzzed incessantly, Ryan calling to argue yet again. His voice, sharp and accusing, filled the car through the Bluetooth speaker. "You're overreacting, Emily. You always do this." She gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles whitening as she tried to focus on the road. "Ryan, I'm done. I can't keep living like this." Her words were steady, but her heart pounded with the weight of finality. Then a blinding flash of headlights. A truck swerved into her lane, and the world spun into chaos. The screech of metal, the shattering of glass, and a searing pain consumed her. Then darkness. When Emily opened her eyes, she wasn't in the wreckage. She was in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by posters of early 2000s pop stars and the soft glow of a lava lamp. The calendar on her desk read September 2009. She was 18 again, a senior at Lincoln High School. Her heart raced as memories of her past life flooded back: the loveless marriage, Ryan's betrayal, and the accident that stole her life. She stumbled to the mirror, her reflection showing a younger, unscarred version of herself. Her long auburn hair fell in waves, her green eyes wide with shock. "This isn't possible," she whispered, touching her face, but it was real. She was back, given a second chance to rewrite her story. As Emily lay in bed that night, a vivid dream came to her. A radiant figure cloaked in light appeared at the edge of her vision. Its voice was soft, like a breeze carrying secrets. "You've been given a second chance, Emily Harper. Use it wisely." She woke with a start, her heart pounding. Was it divine intervention? A cosmic fluke? She didn't know, but the dream felt like a promise, a chance to reclaim the life she'd lost to Ryan's indifference. Tears welled in her eyes as she recalled the pain of her past life. She had loved Ryan with every fiber of her being, sacrificing her dreams to attend a mediocre college to stay close to him. She'd left questions blank on her SATs to ensure they'd go to the same university, a decision that cost her a shot at Northwestern. She'd given him her family's wealth, time, and heart, and in return he'd given her nothing but cold detachment. The betrayal cut deepest when Ryan admitted years into their marriage that he'd only married her for her money. Sophia, frail and delicate, was the one he loved. Emily had been a means to an end, a stepping stone to fund Sophia's medical bills and Ryan's lavish lifestyle. The memory of that confession burned in her chest, mingling with the mystery of the accident. Why had Ryan called her that night, knowing she was driving? Had he wanted her gone to inherit her fortune? The thought haunted her, fueling a resolve as sharp as steel. This time she wouldn't be the fool in love. She would live for herself, her dreams, ambitions, and happiness. Emily sat up, the moonlight spilling through her window. She grabbed a notebook from her desk and began writing. "Goals for this life," she scrawled. 1. Get into Northwestern. 2. Focus on my future. 3. Stay away from Ryan Mitchell. Her pen paused, trembling slightly. Her hatred for Ryan was a living thing, a fire in her bones. But beneath it there was pain, a raw, aching wound from years of being unseen. She closed her eyes, letting a single tear fall. "I'm not that person anymore," she whispered. She would rebuild herself piece by piece and never let Ryan's shadow darken her path again. As she prepared for school the next morning, Emily felt excitement. Lincoln High was a fresh start, a chance to reclaim the opportunities she'd squandered. She slipped into a denim jacket and jeans, her school bag slung over one shoulder. The September air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves as she walked to the bus stop. Her phone buzzed with a notification, a YouTube video from a storytelling channel she followed, Second Chances Stories. The title caught her eye, "Reborn to Rewrite Your Fate." Smiling wryly, she thought, "That's me." She tapped the video, letting the narrator's voice fill her earbuds as she boarded the bus. If you love this tale of redemption, hit that like button, comment about your second chances, and subscribe to join our community of dreamers. The call was clever, woven into the story's theme, and Emily couldn't help but tap the like button. Maybe sharing her story one day would inspire others, just like this channel inspired her. Emily walked through the crowded halls at school, her mind buzzing with possibilities. She passed the football field where cheerleaders practiced their routines, and the library, where she soon buried herself in SAT prep. This was her chance to shine, to become the woman she was meant to be. But as she turned a corner, she froze. There, leaning against a locker, was Ryan Mitchell. His dark hair fell into his eyes, his Letterman jacket slung carelessly over his shoulder. He laughed with friends, but his gaze flicked to her, sharp and knowing. Emily's breath caught. Something was in his eyes, a flicker of recognition, a shadow of their past life. Her heart pounded as she realized that Ryan had been reborn too. The game had changed, and she wasn't the only one playing with memories of a life already lived. The Chicago sun hung low, casting golden streaks across the bustling Oak Park Mall. Emily Harper wove through the crowd, her sneakers scuffing the polished floor as she headed toward the food court. It was a Saturday in early October 2009, and she'd come to shop for a new laptop, determined to equip herself for the academic grind ahead. Her senior year at Lincoln High was her ticket to Northwestern University, a dream she'd abandoned in her past life for Ryan Mitchell. The memory of that sacrifice stung, leaving SAT questions blank to match Ryan's mediocre scores, settling for a local college to stay close to him. Never again, she vowed, clutching her purse tighter. This time her future was hers alone. A familiar voice cut through the chatter as she passed a gleaming Apple store. Emily. Sharp, cold, and edged with something more profound, resentment. She turned to see Ryan standing by a fountain, his hands shoved into the pockets of his jeans. His dark eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment she saw it again, the flicker of recognition, the weight of their shared past. Her stomach twisted. In her previous life, Ryan had been her husband, who drove her family's Bentley and lived off her wealth while giving his heart to Sophia Bennett. Now at 18, he was just a high school jock, but that look told her everything. He remembered too. "Ryan," she said, keeping her voice steady. "What do you want?" around them. Shoppers bustled, oblivious to the tension crackling between them. A group of teens laughed nearby, slurping smoothies while a street performer strummed a guitar. Ryan stepped closer, his jaw tight. "We need to talk about the engagement." Emily's breath caught. The engagement was an arrangement their families had planned since they were kids, growing up in the same affluent neighborhood. In her past life, it had led to their marriage, a decision she'd regret. But now reborn, she had no intention of following that path. "There's nothing to discuss," Emily said, crossing her arms. "I'm not interested." Ryan's eyes narrowed, a mix of surprise and irritation flashing across his face. "You don't get it, do you? I'm calling it off. I don't want to be tied to you, not now, not ever." His words hit like a slap, but Emily felt an unexpected wave of relief. In her past life, she'd fought to keep him, clinging to a love that was never mutual. His rejection was a gift, freeing her from a future she dreaded. "Then we're on the same page," she replied, her tone cool. "Good luck, Ryan." She turned to walk away, but his hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. "Wait," he hissed, his voice low. "You think you can walk away like it's nothing?" "I know you, Emily. I know you're pretending to be okay with this, but you're not. You're still the same girl who'd do anything for me." The accusation stung, dragging up memories of her past self, desperate pleading, sacrificing her dreams for a man who saw her as a bank account. But the certainty in his eyes, the way he spoke, as if he knew her every thought, confirmed her suspicion. Ryan wasn't just guessing. He remembered their marriage, their fights, and her death. He was reborn, carrying the same memories that haunted her. Emily yanked her wrist free, her green eyes blazing. "You don't know me anymore, Ryan. Maybe you never did." Her voice was steady, but inside her emotions churned. The pain of their past life, his coldness, his lies about Sophia clashed with the anger she felt now. She wanted to scream, to tell him how his betrayal had broken her, how his call during that fatal drive might have caused her death. But she swallowed the words, refusing to give him power over her again. "If you want to end the engagement, that's fine. I'm not fighting you, but don't act like I'm chasing you. I'm done." Ryan's face twisted, a mix of disbelief and something darker, guilt perhaps. "You're lying," he said, but his voice faltered. "You'll come running back, Emily. You always do." The words echoed their past life when she'd begged him to stay after learning about Sophia. The memory was a knife in her chest, cutting through the armor she'd built. She took a step back, her heart pounding. "Believe what you want," she said. "But I'm not that girl anymore." She turned and walked away, her steps firm despite the tremor in her hands. The mall's noise swallowed her, the chatter and music starkly contrasting to the storm inside her. As she reached the food court, Emily paused, leaning against a pillar. Her mind replayed Ryan's words, his certainty that she'd cling to him. In her past life she'd lowered herself year after year, hoping for a scrap of his affection. The shame of it burned, but so did her resolve. This time she'd choose herself. She thought of the radiant figure from her dream, its promise of a second chance. She didn't know why she'd been reborn, but she felt its purpose to break free, to build a life untainted by Ryan's shadow. Nearby, a group of classmates waved her over, their laughter pulling her back to the present. Among them was Zach Coleman, a tall, easygoing senior with warm brown eyes and a quick smile. He'd been kind to her since the school year started, leaving notes in her locker or sharing his notes when she missed a class. She didn't know him well yet, but his presence felt like a lifeline, a reminder of her new path. As she joined them, Zach handed her a lemonade. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft and concerned. Emily nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just dealing with some old baggage." Zach raised an eyebrow, but didn't press his quiet understanding a balm to her frayed nerves. Emily sipped her drink, glancing back toward the fountain. Ryan was gone, vanished into the crowd. She felt a strange mix of relief and unease. His rebirth complicated things. He knew their past just as she did. Would he try to pull her back into his orbit to recreate the life where he'd used her? She pushed the thought aside. Ryan's choices were his own now. She had her own goals, acing her SATs, getting into Northwestern, and building a life that was hers alone. But as she laughed with her friends, a small part of her wondered what Ryan's next move would be. He'd thrown away their engagement for Sophia, but the look in his eyes told her he wasn't done with her yet. The game began, and Emily was ready to play it on her terms. The Chicago winter bit at Emily Harper's fingertips as she stepped out of a black SUV, her boots crunching on the icy sidewalk outside the Drake Hotel. It was late December 2009, and the city sparkled with holiday lights, the air thick with the scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor. Emily adjusted her scarf, her auburn hair catching the glow of street lamps as she headed toward the restaurant's entrance. Her father, James Harper, had reserved a private room for a New Year's Eve dinner, a gathering of the Harper and Mitchell families. On the surface, it was a festive occasion, a chance to toast old friendships forged in their affluent Lincoln Park neighborhood. But Emily knew the real purpose: to formalize her engagement to Ryan Mitchell, a plan their parents had nurtured since they were kids, playing in the same cul-de-sac. Emily's stomach churned at the thought. In her past life, this engagement had led to a marriage that crushed her spirit, tying her to a man who saw her as a bank account, while his heart belonged to Sophia Bennett. Now reborn as her 18-year-old self, Emily had no intention of repeating that mistake. She planned to play along tonight, smile politely through dinner, then speak to her parents privately to end the arrangement without causing a scene. Her resolve was steel-forged by memories of Ryan's betrayal and the car accident that stole her life. But as she approached the hotel's revolving doors, a figure stepped into her path, blocking her way. "Miss Harper, please wait." The voice was soft, trembling, almost drowned out by the hum of holiday traffic. Emily stopped, her breath catching as she recognized Sophia Bennett. Ryan's childhood sweetheart stood before her, her delicate frame shivering in a thin coat, her blonde hair damp from the snow. Tears brimmed in her wide blue eyes, making her look like a porcelain doll about to shatter. "I need to talk to you," Sophia said, her voice cracking. "It's about Ryan." Emily's pulse quickened. She hadn't seen Sophia since her rebirth, but the sight of her stirred a mix of pity and wariness. Sophia had been the shadow over her marriage in her past life, the woman Ryan loved, while Emily played the fool. "What do you want, Sophia?" Emily asked, her tone even but guarded. Two bodyguards hired by her father after a recent corporate threat flanked her, their hands twitching toward their earpieces. Emily raised a hand, signaling them to stand down. She didn't need protection from Sophia, not yet. Sophia took a shaky step forward, her hands clasped tightly. "I know you're from a good family," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're beautiful, rich, you've got everything. But I'm not like you. Ryan's all I have. Please don't take him from me." Her words were a plea, but there was a calculated edge to them, a performance meant to tug at Emily's heart. Emily studied her, noting Sophia's shoulders hunched, her eyes darting to gauge Emily's reaction. Emily might have fallen for it in her past life, softened by guilt. But now she saw through the act. Sophia wasn't just a lovesick girl, she was desperate, clinging to Ryan as a lifeline. Emily recalled snippets from her past life gossip about Sophia's unstable foster home and her lack of a safety net. With his connection to the Harper family's wealth, Ryan was her ticket to security. "I'm not trying to take Ryan," Emily said, calm but firm. "I don't want him. You've got the wrong idea." Sophia's eyes widened, a flicker of disbelief crossing her face. Then in a dramatic flourish, she dropped to her knees on the icy sidewalk, her hands clasped in supplication. "Please, Emily," she sobbed, her voice loud enough to draw stares from passers-by. "I'm begging you. Let us be together." Snow soaked through her coat and she coughed, cheeks flushing red. To the onlookers, it looked like Emily was bullying a frail, helpless girl. A couple whispered nearby, shooting Emily disapproving glances. Her bodyguards stepped forward, but Emily waved them back again, her lips curling into a faint, humorless smile. She said, "There's no need for this," her voice steady despite the growing crowd. "I've already told you I'm not after Ryan. If he wants to be with you, that's his choice." She kept her tone neutral, but inside her emotions churned. Sophia's theatrics reminded her of the past life when Ryan had used Sophia's supposed fragility to justify his neglect. Emily felt sympathy not for Sophia's tears, but for the desperation driving her. Growing up in foster care, bouncing between homes had left Sophia scrambling for stability. With his charm and potential access to wealth, Ryan was her anchor. But Emily wasn't here to play savior. She stepped past Sophia, her boots clicking on the pavement, and entered the hotel without looking back. Inside, the warmth of the Drake's lobby enveloped her, chandeliers casting golden light across marble floors. Emily paused, her reflection shimmering in a mirrored wall. She saw the girl she'd been in her past life, naive, desperate for Ryan's approval, and the woman she was becoming, stronger, surer. Sophia's plea had stirred memories of pain, but also clarity. She wouldn't let guilt or pity pull her back into Ryan's orbit. Tonight's dinner would be a test, a chance to prove she could walk away from the past. As she headed toward the private dining room, she squared her shoulders, ready to face the Mitchells and the weight of their expectations. Sophia's tears were a reminder of the stakes, but Emily was no longer the girl who'd bend to please others. This was her second chance, and she'd fight for it. The private dining room at the Drake Hotel glowed with elegance, its long mahogany table adorned with crystal glassware and flickering candles. The scent of roasted lamb and rosemary filled the air, mingling with the soft hum of classical music. Emily Harper sat across from Ryan Mitchell, her posture impeccable despite the tension coiling in her chest. It was New Year's Eve 2009, and the dinner was meant to celebrate the long-standing friendship between the Harper and Mitchell families, neighbors in Chicago's Lincoln Park, for decades. But everyone in the room knew the unspoken agenda to confirm the engagement between Emily and Ryan, a union planned since their childhood days of backyard barbecues and shared vacations. This dinner had sealed her fate in her past life, leading to a marriage that broke her heart. Now, reborn Emily was determined to rewrite that story. Her parents, James and Linda Harper, sat at the head of the table, their smiles warm but tinged with expectation. James, a tech mogul with a kind but commanding presence, raised a glass of wine. He said to old friends and new beginnings, his eyes flickering toward Emily and Ryan. Elegant in a navy dress, Linda nodded, her gaze soft but watchful. Across the table, Ryan's mother, Karen Mitchell, beamed with pride, her earrings glinting as she leaned toward Emily. "You two make such a lovely pair," she said, her voice syrupy with ambition. Karen had always seen the Harper's wealth as a ladder for her family, and Ryan's engagement to Emily was her golden ticket. Ryan, seated beside Emily, stared at his plate, his jaw tight, saying nothing. Emily sipped her water, her mind racing. She'd planned to finish the dinner politely, then speak to her parents later to end the engagement. But Ryan's silence was unnerving, a stark contrast to the charming boy he'd been in her past life, all smiles to win her family's favor. She glanced at him, noting how his fingers drummed on the table, his eyes distant yet sharp. He was different now, carrying the weight of their past life's memories. She wondered what he was planning. His confrontation at the mall weeks ago when he'd ended their engagement suggested he was ready to break free from Sophia. But why the tension now? Did he doubt his choice? As the main course arrived, Karen broke the silence, her voice bright with purpose. She said, "The kids are all grown up," looking at James and Linda. "It's time we set a date for the engagement, don't you think?" The words hung in the air, heavy with expectation. Emily's fork paused midair, her heart skipping a beat. Before she could speak, Ryan's wine glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the hardwood floor with a sharp clink. The room froze, all eyes on him. Karen shot him a glare, her cheeks flushing. "Ryan, honestly, you're not a child anymore," she snapped. "Don't embarrass yourself in front of Emily." Ryan's face darkened, his eyes blazing with a resolve Emily recognized from their past life, stubborn, defiant. He stood his chair, scraping against the floor, and faced her parents with a stiff bow. "Mr. and Mrs. Harper," he said, his voice steady, but laced with anger. "I've thought about this for a long time. The understanding between our families needs to end. I'm in love with someone else, Sophia Bennett. I promise to take care of her for the rest of my life." His words sliced through the room, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. Emily's parents exchanged glances, their faces tightening with shock and disappointment. Karen gasped, her hand flying to her mouth while Emily set down her fork, her pulse steady despite the chaos. Inside, she felt a surge of relief tempered by a flicker of hurt. Ryan's public rejection stung, echoing the humiliations of her past life, but it also freed her. She wouldn't have to fight to end the engagement, he'd done it for her. James Harper's voice broke the silence, low and measured. "Ryan, you're sure about this?" His eyes, usually warm, were hard with restraint. Linda reached for Emily's hand under the table, squeezing gently, a silent promise of support. Emily squeezed back, grateful for her parents' loyalty. In her past life, they'd accepted Ryan despite his modest background, believing he'd cherish her. Now they saw the truth. Karen, however, unraveled. "Ryan, what are you doing?" she hissed, her voice rising. "You can't throw this away. The Harpers are our family, and Emily." Her words cut off as Ryan slammed his fist on the table, a steak knife clattering to the floor. "Enough, Mom," he shouted. "I'm not your pawn anymore." His outburst shocked the room, and Karen's eyes filled with tears, her dreams of social climbing crumbling. Emily watched, her heart a tangle of emotions. She felt no joy in Ryan's defiance, only a quiet resolve. This was when her past life diverged, and she stepped into her own future. Linda pulled Emily aside in the hotel's lobby as the dinner dissolved into awkward farewells. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice soft with concern. Emily nodded, her throat tight. "I didn't want the engagement either, Mom. I was going to tell you after dinner." Linda's eyes softened, a mix of pride and sadness. "We only want you to be happy," she said. "If Ryan's not the one, we'll support you. Always." James joined them, his arm around Emily's shoulders. "You're our priority," he said firmly. "The Mitchells will have to figure this out on their own." Outside, as Emily climbed into the SUV, she glanced at Ryan standing alone on the sidewalk, his face a mask of defiance and regret. Karen was beside him, sobbing, her voice carrying on the winter air. "You've ruined everything, Ryan." Emily turned away, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. The engagement was over, and with it the chains of her past life. But as the car pulled away, she couldn't shake the memory of Ryan's eyes, haunted, angry, and all too familiar. He knew their past just as she did. This wasn't the end of their story, but Emily was ready for whatever came next. The soft glow of a desk lamp illuminated Emily Harper's bedroom, casting shadows across her notebook filled with SAT prep questions. It was late January 2010, and the Chicago winter pressed against her window, snowflakes swirling in the night. Lincoln Park was quiet, the neighborhood's stately homes blanketed in white, but Emily's mind was a storm of memories inside. She sat cross-legged on her bed, her auburn hair pulled into a messy bun, her green eyes tracing the pages without seeing them. The New Year's Eve dinner at the Drake Hotel, where Ryan Mitchell publicly ended their engagement, was weeks behind her, but its ripples lingered. Her freedom was absolute, yet it came with a shadow, a haunting reminder of her past life, where she'd lost everything to Ryan's betrayal. In that life, Emily had been 32, married to Ryan for 6 years, living in a Lake Michigan penthouse that gleamed with her family's wealth. She'd loved him fiercely, believing her devotion could bridge the gap between them. Despite his lack of ambition, she gave him a senior role at Harper Innovations, her father's tech empire. She filled his life with luxury designer suits, a Bentley vacations to Aspen, hoping he'd see her, truly see her. But Ryan's heart was a locked door, and Sophia Bennett held the key. His indifference was a slow poison eroding Emily's spirit daily. She'd cook his favorite meals, plan anniversaries, play the perfect wife, only to be met with curt nods and distant gazes. The memory of those years tightened her chest, a dull ache that hadn't faded even in this reborn life. The worst moment came 2 months before her death. Ryan had come to her, his voice uncharacteristically soft, asking for $1 million. "It's for Sophia," he'd said, his eyes avoiding hers. "She's sick, Emily. She needs surgery." The name Sophia, spoken aloud for the first time, was a blade in her heart. She'd heard whispers of his childhood friend, seeing how his face lit up at her mention, but this was different. He admitted he loved Sophia and that marrying Emily was about her money, a way to fund Sophia's care while living a life of ease. "You give me stability," he'd said, as if that justified his deceit. Emily's rage had erupted, years of suppressed hurt boiling over. She slapped him, her hand stinging, but Ryan didn't flinch. "Sophia sees me as a man," he said coolly. "With you, I'm just a kept dog." Those words echoed now as Emily stared at her notebook. She'd laughed then, a bitter, broken sound, but tears had followed. She'd given him everything, her love, future, dignity, and he'd thrown it back in her face. That night she'd demanded a divorce, vowing to reclaim her life. But on her drive to their estate, Ryan's call had come, his voice angry and insistent. "You can't just walk away, Emily." Distracted, she hadn't seen the truck until it was too late. The crash, the pain, the darkness, she still didn't know if Ryan had meant to harm her, if his call was a calculated move to secure her inheritance. The thought gnawed at her, a wound that refused to heal. Emily closed her notebook, her hands trembling. She stood and paced the hardwood floor, creaking under her socks. Her rebirth was a mystery marked by that dream of a radiant figure, whispering of a second chance. She didn't understand why she'd been given this gift, but felt its weight. It was a chance to undo her mistakes, to choose herself over a man who'd never deserved her. Yet the pain lingered, not just anger at Ryan, but shame at herself for loving so unquestioningly, for sacrificing her dreams. She'd left SAT questions blank to attend the same college as Ryan, missing Northwestern for a man who saw her as a means to an end. The memory made her wince, a physical pain in her chest. She stopped at her window, pressing her forehead against the cold glass. Below Lincoln Park, slept under a veil of snow, the streetlights casting a soft glow. Emily's reflection stared back, a girl reborn, but carrying a woman's scars. She thought of her parents, James and Linda, who'd supported her after Ryan's rejection at the Drake. Their love was a lifeline grounding her in this new life. "You're our priority," her father had said, his voice firm with conviction. Her mother had hugged her, whispering, "You deserve someone who sees you." Their words were a balm, but they couldn't erase the hurt. Emily needed to heal herself, to rebuild the confidence she'd lost. She returned to her bed, picking up a photo from her nightstand, a picture of her at 16, laughing with friends at a high school football game. That girl had been fearless, full of dreams. Emily wanted to be her again, not the broken wife she'd become. She opened her notebook to her list of goals. 1. Get into Northwestern. 2. Focus on my future. 3. Stay away from Ryan Mitchell. The last goal was underlined twice, a promise to herself. But Ryan's rebirth complicated things. His eyes at the mall, sharp with recognition, told her he remembered their past life. Would he try to pull her back, to use her again? The thought sparked a flicker of fear, but also defiance. She wasn't that girl anymore. She'd fight for her second chance, no matter what Ryan did. Spring bloomed in Chicago, and the cherry blossoms along Lake Michigan burst into pink clouds against the April sky. Lincoln High buzzed with the energy of senior year prom planning, college applications, and the looming SATs. Emily Harper walked through the school's crowded halls, her backpack heavy with textbooks, her mind focused on her goal, Northwestern University. After the New Year's Eve dinner where Ryan Mitchell had ended their engagement, Emily felt lighter, like a chain had been cut from her heart. But the scars of her past life lingered, urging her to stay vigilant. Ryan's reborn memories made him unpredictable, and she wasn't naive enough to think he'd let her go so easily. In her AP calculus class, Emily found an unexpected anchor, Zach Coleman. Tall, with warm brown eyes and a quick smile, Zach was the kind of guy who made everyone feel at ease. He'd been in her classes since his first year, but they'd never been close until now. Since her rebirth, Emily had noticed his small gestures, a pencil lent during a test, a coffee left on her desk with a post-it note saying, "You got this today." As she struggled with the derivative problem, Zach slid into the seat beside her, his notebook open. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice low to avoid the teacher's notice. Emily glanced at him, grateful but wary. Trust didn't come easily after Ryan. "Sure," she said, pushing her worksheet toward him. Zach explained the problem patiently, his fingers tracing the equations as he broke them down. You're overthinking it, he said, grinning. Just let the numbers flow. His ease disarmed her, and she laughed for the first time in weeks, a real unguarded sound. Zach's grin widened, and he leaned back, tossing his pencil. See, math's not so bad when you have a genius like me. Emily rolled her eyes, but her smile lingered. Zach was different from Ryan, whose charm had always been calculated a mask for his ambition. Zach's kindness felt genuine, untainted by ulterior motives. After class, they walked to the library for a group project on Chicago's urban development. The spring sun streamed through the windows, illuminating rows of books and the chatter of students. Zach shared his dream of studying architecture at Northwestern, his eyes lighting up as he described designing sustainable buildings. He said, "I want to create spaces that make people feel alive," sketching a sleek skyscraper on a napkin. Emily listened, captivated by his passion. In her past life, she'd never met anyone like Zach, someone who dreamed big but stayed grounded, who saw her as a person, not a prize. "What about you?" he asked, nudging her. "What's your big plan?" Emily hesitated, the weight of her past life pressing against her. "Northwestern, too," she said finally. "I want to study business and take over my dad's company someday." It was the first time she'd voiced it aloud, a dream she'd buried for Ryan. Zach nodded, his expression serious. "You'd be great at it. You've got this fire in you, Emily. Don't let anyone dim it." His words hit her like a spark, igniting a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She wanted to believe him, to trust that she could be more than the broken wife she'd been. Their project stretched into the evening, and Zach walked her to the school parking lot where her family's driver waited in a black Bentley. As they passed the football field, Emily spotted Ryan near the bleachers, his Letterman jacket slung over his shoulder. He was arguing with a classmate, his voice sharp. "It's not Sophia's fault," he snapped, defending her over some classroom drama. Emily's stomach twisted. She'd heard rumors that Ryan was working part-time at a diner to pay for Sophia's supposed medical bills, a pattern from their past life. He caught her gaze, his eyes narrowing with accusation. "What are you looking at, Emily?" he called, his tone dripping with contempt, and still following me around. Emily's jaw tightened, but she kept walking, refusing to engage. Zach stepped closer, his voice low. "Ignore him. He's just mad at the world." Emily nodded, but Ryan's words stung, echoing his delusion that she was still obsessed with him. In her past life, she'd have chased after him, desperate to prove her love. Now she saw his accusations for what they were, a projection of his own guilt. "He thinks I'm the same person I was," she said quietly, more to herself than Zach. He glanced at her, his brow furrowing. "You're not. Anyone can see that." His certainty grounded her, a reminder of the new path she was forging. As they reached the Bentley, Zach slung his backpack over his shoulder. "Hey, want to grab coffee this weekend? We can go over the project. Or talk." His smile was shy, a contrast to his usual confidence. Emily's heart skipped, caught off guard by the warmth in his eyes. Maybe she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. As the car pulled away, she watched Zach wave, his figure shrinking in the rearview mirror. For the first time since her rebirth, Emily felt a flicker of hope, not just for her future, but for the possibility of connection. Ryan's shadow loomed, but with Zach by her side, she felt ready to face it, to build a life that was truly hers. The May sun bathed Chicago's Lincoln High in a golden glow, the school's brick facade alive with the chatter of seniors counting down to graduation. Emily Harper navigated the crowded hallway, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her mind fixed on the SAT prep books tucked inside. Spring of 2010 was her season of focus, a time to claw back the future she'd sacrificed in her past life for Ryan Mitchell. The memory of that life, 6 years of a loveless marriage, her dreams buried to prop up a man who never loved her, still stung, but it also fueled her. She was determined to ace her exams and secure a spot at Northwestern University, a dream she'd once abandoned to follow Ryan to a lesser college. Now reborn as her 18-year-old self, she was rewriting her story step by determined step. A commotion caught her attention as she turned a corner toward the cafeteria. A crowd of students had gathered near the bulletin board, their voices a mix of laughter and indignation. Emily pushed through, curious, and saw Ryan Mitchell at the center, his face flushed with anger. His Letterman jacket hung loosely on his frame, which had grown thinner in recent weeks, his dark hair unkempt. He was arguing with Jake Peterson, the class president of their senior homeroom. "It's not Sophia's fault," Ryan snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut through the noise. "She didn't lose the money." "Okay." "Back off." Jake crossed his arms, unimpressed. The fundraiser's cash was her responsibility, Ryan. $80 is missing and you're covering for her. If you're so sure, pay it yourself. Emily paused, her gaze narrowing. She'd heard rumors about Ryan's struggles working late shifts at a diner in Wicker Park to pay for Sophia Bennett's supposed medical bills. In her past life, Ryan had done the same, funneling her family's money to Sophia while treating Emily like an afterthought. Now, without the Harper wealth to lean on, he was scraping by his pride, battered by the reality of minimum wage. Sophia stood beside him, her blonde hair tied back, her blue eyes glistening with tears. "I didn't mean to lose it," she murmured, her voice soft but calculated, drawing sympathetic glances from the crowd. Emily recognized the act, Sophia's knack for playing the victim, a tactic she'd used to keep Ryan tethered in their past life. Ryan's eyes flicked to Emily, and his expression hardened, a mix of contempt and something more profound, guilt, perhaps. "What are you doing here, Emily?" he called, his voice dripping with accusation. "Come to laugh at me? Still can't stay away, huh?" The words hit like a jab, echoing his delusion from their mall encounter months ago when he'd insisted she was chasing him. Emily's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure, her green eyes steady. She'd have crumbled under his scorn in her past life, desperate to prove her love. Now she saw his words for what they were, a projection of his unraveling life. "I'm just passing through, Ryan," she said coolly. "You're the one making a scene." The crowd murmured some snickering at Ryan's embarrassment. His face reddened, but he turned back to Jake, digging into his pocket. "Fine," he muttered, pulling out a crumpled wad of bills. He counted out $80, likely a week's worth of tips, and thrust them at Jake. "Here." Happy now, Jake took the money, shrugging. "Just doing my job, man." Sophia reached for Ryan's arm, her voice soft. She said you didn't have to do that, but her eyes darted to the crowd, gauging their reaction. Emily turned away, her stomach twisting with pity and disdain. Ryan was drowning in his loyalty to Sophia, just as he had in their past life, blind to her manipulation. As Emily headed to the cafeteria, Zach Coleman caught up with her, his easy stride matching hers. "Rough day for Mitchell," he said, his brown eyes glinting with humor. "Guys fighting battles he can't win." Emily glanced at him, grateful for his presence. Zach had become a constant in her life since their calculus class, and his kindness starkly contrasted with Ryan's volatility. "He's his own worst enemy," she said, her voice quieter than she intended. Zach nodded, sensing her unease. "You okay? Looked like he got under your skin back there." Emily sighed, her shoulders relaxing. "He thinks I'm still hung up on him. It's pathetic, but it stings. I used to be that girl he's accusing me of being." Zach stopped, his expression softening. "You're not her anymore, Emily. You're killing it, top grades Northwestern in your sights. Don't let him drag you back." His words were a lifeline, pulling her from the shadows of her past. She smiled, a real one this time. "Thanks, Zach. I needed that." They grabbed trays and joined the lunch line, the chatter of students around them, a reminder of the normalcy she craved. But as she glanced back at the hallway, she saw Ryan watching her. His eyes narrowed with a mix of resentment and desperation. He still believed she was tethered to him, a delusion born of their shared past life. Emily turned away, focusing on Zach's laughter, determined to keep Ryan at a distance. The June sun blazed over Lincoln High's athletic field, where the senior class gathered for the annual track meet, a chaotic blend of cheers, sweat, and teenage energy. Emily Harper stood near the bleachers, her auburn hair tied back, her green eyes scanning the crowd for Zach Coleman. They'd planned to meet after her relay race, a rare moment to relax before the final push for SATs and college applications. The spring of 2010 had been transformative for Emily, her focus on academics and self-growth sharpened with each passing day. She was no longer the girl who'd sacrificed her dreams for Ryan Mitchell, but the scars of her past life, 6 years of a loveless marriage. His betrayal with Sophia Bennett still lingered, urging her to stay vigilant. As the meeting ended, a sleek black Bentley pulled up to the school's curb, its polished exterior glinting in the sunlight. Emily's family driver, Marcus, stepped out, his gray suit crisp as he opened the rear door. The car was a relic of her past life, one Ryan had loved driving, flaunting as if it were his own. Now it was just a ride home, a practical choice for a busy day. But as Emily approached, she saw Ryan near the parking lot, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his face gaunt from late-night diner shifts. He froze, his dark eyes locking onto the Bentley, a flicker of longing crossing his features. That car had been his prize in their past life, symbolizing the luxury he'd gained through Emily's wealth. Now it was a reminder of everything he'd lost. Ryan's gaze shifted to Emily and his expression twisted into a smug smirk. He strode toward the car, his steps confident as if he belonged there. Emily's stomach churned a mix of irritation and unease. She knew that look. He thought she was staging this, using her family's wealth to lure him back. Before she could react, Ryan reached the Bentley and leaned toward Marcus. "Open the door, man," he said, his voice laced with arrogance. "You know who I am." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his voice dripping with disdain. "And who the hell are you? Some kid thinking he can hop into Miss Harper's car, get lost." Ryan's face flushed crimson, the crowd of students nearby turning to watch. A few laughed, their whispers cutting through the air. "Is he serious?" one muttered. Ryan spun around, his eyes finding Emily. "This is your game." He shouted, his voice cracking angrily and showing off with this car trying to make me jealous. "You're pathetic, Emily. I told you I'm with Sophia now. Please give it up." The accusation stung, dragging up memories of her past life, when she'd begged for his attention, lowering herself to keep him. But now reborn, she saw his words for what they were, a desperate attempt to reclaim control. Emily stepped forward, her voice calm but sharp. "You're delusional, Ryan. This is my family's car, not a prop for your ego. I'm going home. What does that have to do with you?" The crowd's laughter grew and Ryan's face darkened, his fists clenching. "You know precisely what you're doing," he muttered. "You can't let me go. You never could." His words mirror their past life when he'd mocked her love as clinginess. Emily's heart ached not for him, but for the girl she'd been, naive, desperate, blind. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "I let you go the moment you ended our engagement," she said. "This is my life now. Stay out of it." Marcus gestured to the car, his expression impatient. "Miss Harper, let's go." Emily nodded, sliding into the back seat, but not before Zach appeared, jogging over from the bleachers. "Everything okay?" he asked, his brown eyes scanning Ryan with quiet intensity. Emily smiled, grateful for his timing. "Just Ryan being Ryan," she said, her voice lighter than she felt. Zach glanced at Ryan, still glaring, and leaned closer to Emily. "He's not worth your energy," he whispered. "Come on, I'll ride with you. My place is on your way." Emily nodded, and Zach climbed in beside her, his presence a steady anchor. As the Bentley pulled away, Emily glanced out the window, seeing Ryan standing alone, his fists still clenched. The crowd dispersed, their laughter fading, but Ryan's eyes followed the car, a mix of anger and regret. Emily turned to Zach, who was sketching a building design on his phone, his brow furrowed in concentration. "What's that?" she asked, curious. He grinned, showing her a sleek, eco-friendly tower. "Just a dream for Northwestern," he said. "I want to build something that lasts." His passion was infectious, pulling Emily from the weight of Ryan's accusations. She felt a flicker of something new, hope maybe, or the beginnings of trust. Ryan's delusions couldn't touch her here, not with Zach by her side and her future within reach. The August heat hung heavy over Chicago's Magnificent Mile, where skyscrapers gleamed and shoppers bustled through the air-conditioned haven of Water Tower Place. Emily Harper, now a few weeks from starting her first year at Northwestern University, wandered the mall with a group of friends, her auburn hair catching the fluorescent light. The summer of 2010 had been a whirlwind of SAT prep college applications and a growing sense of freedom. Reborn from a past life where she'd lost everything to Ryan Mitchell's betrayal, Emily was reclaiming her future. The scars of her 6-year marriage to Ryan, his cold indifference, his love for Sophia Bennett still lingered, but they no longer defined her. She was here to pick out dorm decor, a tangible step toward the life she'd always wanted. A familiar voice drifted from the corridor as she browsed a jewelry store's display. "Ryan, you promised me that necklace ages ago." The tone was soft, but edged with frustration. Emily froze, her heart skipping a beat. Peering around a rack, she saw Sophia Bennett, her blonde hair tied in a loose ponytail, tugging at Ryan's arm. He looked worn, his face thinner than ever, his diner uniform peeking under a faded hoodie. "Sophia." "I'm trying," he said, his voice strained. "All my paychecks have gone to your medical bills. I don't have the cash right now." Sophia's lips pursed, her blue eyes narrowing. "If you don't want to spend money on me, say it," she snapped, her voice still sweet but sharp enough to cut. Emily's stomach twisted. In her past life, Ryan had funneled her family's wealth to Sophia, claiming it was for her health. Without Emily's money, he was scraping by, working late shifts to keep Sophia happy. She watched as Ryan, desperate to please her, pulled out a cheap silver necklace from his pocket, a trinket worth $10 at most. "It's your zodiac sign, Aries," he said, his voice hopeful. "I searched all over for it." "Do you like it?" Sophia's smile vanished, her eyes cold with disappointment. She took the necklace, holding it as if it were tainted. "This is it," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "Ryan, I thought you meant something real." The scene is almost comical, but Emily feels pity not for Sophia, but for Ryan's blind devotion. She'd once thought he'd give Sophia the world, but he offered a dime store trinket to a woman who wanted more. Emily's friends called her over, but she lingered, her mind racing. Sophia's reaction confirmed what she'd suspected. Her tears and frailty were a performance to secure Ryan's loyalty and his money. Emily knew Sophia's backstory from whispers at school. Growing up in foster care, bouncing between homes had left her desperate for stability. With his connection to the Harpers, Ryan had been her ticket to a better life. But now, without that wealth, Sophia's true colors were showing. Emily turned to leave, but an idea sparked. She'd had enough of Ryan's accusations that she was chasing him, enough of Sophia's manipulations casting a shadow over her new life. Later that day, she texted a friend, Mia, who knew the shadier corners of Chicago's nightlife. "Can you get me a video from that bar on Division Street?" she asked. "Something showing Sophia with those guys she hangs out with." Mia, always up for a bit of mischief, delivered. That night, Emily received a grainy video clip. It showed Sophia at a dive bar perched on a guy's lap, her laughter loud over the blaring music. "Ryan's such an idiot," she said, her voice slurring. "Working his ass off for my treatments. I'd ditch him in a heartbeat if it weren't for his money." The guy smirked, sliding a hand up her thigh. "Milk him dry, then we're out of here," he said. Emily's lips curled into a grim smile. She forwarded the video to Ryan from an anonymous number, her fingers steady despite the surge of adrenaline. She wasn't a saint. She wanted Ryan to see the truth, to feel the sting of betrayal as she had in her past life. Days later, she heard the fallout through the school grapevine. Ryan had confronted Sophia outside a coffee shop, his voice shaking as he threw his phone at her feet, the video playing on a loop. "What the hell is this?" he'd shouted. Sophia didn't flinch, her smile cruel. "You're so easy to fool, Ryan. I said I was sick, and you broke your back for me. Honestly, I didn't think you'd be that dumb." The words had shattered him, his face crumpling as he realized the woman he'd sacrificed everything for saw him as a means to an end. Emily felt no joy in Ryan's pain, only a quiet satisfaction. She'd spent her past life loving a man who'd used her, and now he was tasting his own medicine. As she walked through the mall, her friend's laughter pulled her back to the present, and she glanced at the jewelry store one last time. Ryan and Sophia were gone, their drama a fading echo. Emily's heart was lighter, her focus sharper. Northwestern awaited with it, a future untainted by Ryan's shadow. But she knew he wasn't done with her yet. His reborn memories made him unpredictable, and she braced herself for what might come next. September 2010 brought a crisp edge to Chicago's air, the Lake Michigan breeze carrying the first hints of fall. Emily Harper stood in her family's Lincoln Park home, her hands trembling as she opened an envelope from Northwestern University. The acceptance letter inside was a triumph, a testament to months of relentless study and a refusal to repeat the mistakes of her past life. In that life, she'd tanked her SATs to follow Ryan Mitchell to a mediocre college, sacrificing her dreams for a man who'd married her for her wealth. Now reborn, she'd clawed her way to the top, scoring in the 99th percentile and earning her place at Northwestern's business school. She pressed the letter to her chest, tears of joy mixing with relief. This was her second chance, and she'd seized it. Her parents, James and Linda Harper, were in the kitchen, their voices warm with pride as they planned a celebration dinner. "You've made us so proud," Emily Linda said, pulling her into a hug. "This is your moment." James, usually stoic, smiled broadly. "He said you're going to run Harper Innovations one day," his eyes gleaming. Their support was a lifeline grounding Emily after the chaos of the past year. Ryan's rejection at the Drake, Sophia's manipulations, the weight of her past life's pain. The Harpers had closed ranks around her, their love unwavering, and Emily felt a surge of gratitude. They'd moved on from the Mitchells, their old neighbors now a distant memory, and Emily was ready to do the same. At Lincoln High, the news of Emily's acceptance spread like wildfire banners, celebrating her and one other student who'd made it to Northwestern. Her friends threw an impromptu party at a local diner, the jukebox blaring classic rock as they toasted her success. Zach Coleman was there, his brown eyes warm as he handed her a milkshake. "To the future CEO," he said, clinking his glass against hers. Emily laughed, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Zach had become her rock over the past months, and his kindness starkly contrasted with Ryan's betrayal. Their friendship had deepened through late-night study sessions and shared dreams, his for architecture, hers for business. She'd caught herself noticing the way his smile crinkled his eyes, the way he listened without judgment, and it scared her as much as it thrilled her. That evening, Zach walked her home, the Chicago skyline glowing against the dusk. They stopped at a park near her house, the swings creaking softly in the breeze. "I'm proud of you, Emily," Zach said, his voice quiet but earnest. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" His words caught her off guard, and she looked away, her throat tight. She hadn't told him about her past life, how could she, but Zach had a way of seeing her, sensing her weight. "Yeah," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "More than you know." She thought of Ryan's accusations, his delusion that she was chasing him, and the accident that had ended her first life. The pain was still there, but fading, replaced by something new, hope. Zach sat on a swing, his hands gripping the chains. He said, "I don't know your whole story, but I see how hard you fight for what you want. It's one of the things I like about you." His cheeks flushed and he looked down, suddenly shy. Emily's heart skipped, a warmth spreading through her. In her past life, she'd poured her love into Ryan only to be met with coldness. Zach was different, genuine, supportive, seeing her for who she was, not what she could offer. "I like you too," she said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Zach's eyes met hers, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Good," he said. "Because I was hoping you'd say that." They sat in companionable silence, the city's hum, a soft backdrop. Emily felt a shift, a lightness she hadn't known since her rebirth. She was healing not just from Ryan's betrayal, but from the shame of her past self. Zach's presence was a reminder that she could trust again, that love didn't have to hurt. As they walked to her house, he reached for her hand, his fingers warm against hers. "Want to grab coffee tomorrow?" he asked. "Just us." Emily nodded, her smile genuine. "I'd like that." Her mother, Linda, was waiting at the door, her eyes twinkling as she spotted their joined hands. "Zach." "Stay for dinner," she called. "We're celebrating Emily's big day." Zach grinned, accepting, and Emily felt a surge of warmth. Her family's approval, Zach's support, it was a new beginning. Meanwhile, word reached Emily that Ryan's life was unraveling. He'd failed to get into college, his grades tanked by late-night diner shifts. His mother, Karen, had cut him off, furious that he'd thrown away the Harper connection. Emily felt no pity. Ryan had made his choices just as she'd made hers. She thought of the video she'd sent exposing Sophia's betrayal and wondered how deeply it had cut him. But as she laughed with Zach and her family over dinner, Ryan's shadow faded. Her future was bright, and for the first time she felt ready to embrace it, hand in hand with someone who saw her worth. October 2010 painted Chicago in hues of amber and crimson, the trees along Lake Michigan shedding leaves like embers in the crisp fall air. Emily Harper stood in her family's Lincoln Park garden, pruning roses under the soft glow of string lights. The scent of damp earth and blooming flowers grounded her, a quiet contrast to the whirlwind of her first year at Northwestern University. Framed on her dorm room wall, her acceptance letter was a testament to her reclaimed future, a stark departure from the past life where she'd sacrificed her dreams for Ryan Mitchell. That life, 6 years of a loveless marriage, his betrayal with Sophia Bennett, and a fatal car accident still haunted her, but she was healing step by deliberate step. Her classes in business school were rigorous, her ambitions sharp, and her heart tentatively was opening to Zach Coleman, whose steady presence had become a cornerstone of her new life. The garden gate creaked, and Emily glanced up, her pruning shears pausing mid-snip. Ryan Mitchell stood there, his figure a shadow against the twilight. He was unrecognizable from the confident jock she'd known a year ago, his face gaunt, his diner uniform wrinkled, his dark eyes hollow with desperation. The sight stirred a complex mix of emotions in Emily, pity, anger, and a faint echo of the pain he'd caused her. She'd heard through the grapevine that Ryan's life had unraveled since Sophia's betrayal was exposed in a video she'd orchestrated. He'd failed to get into college, his mother Karen had disowned him for ruining their tie to the Harpers, and Sophia had vanished, leaving him grappling with the wreckage of his choices. "What are you doing here, Ryan?" Emily asked, her voice calm but edged with steel. She set the shears down, wiping her hands on her jeans. Ryan stepped forward, his hands trembling as he dropped to his knees in the grass. "Emily, I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice raw. I was wrong about everything. Sophia used me, lied about her illness, and played me for a fool. I see it now. Please give me another chance. His words were a plea, but they carried the weight of their past life when he'd admitted to marrying her for money while loving Sophia. Emily's chest tightened, memories flooding back his cold indifference, his cruel words calling her a burden, the accident that might have been his doing. She crouched to his level, her green eyes meeting his. You think an apology fixes this? She said, her tone steady despite the storm inside. In our past life, I gave you everything, my love, my family's wealth, my future. And you threw it away, for Sophia told me I made your skin crawl. Do you know what that did to me? Her voice cracked, the raw pain of those years spilling out. She'd loved him unquestioningly, lowering herself to win a scrap of his affection, only to be betrayed. The shame of that girl lingered, but Emily was no longer her. I died because of you, Ryan, she said, her words a quiet blade. Whether you meant it or not, your call that night caused the crash. And now you're here begging for what? My money, my forgiveness. Ryan's face crumpled, tears streaking his cheeks. I was wrong, he choked out. I hated being called the Harper's lapdog, living off your wealth. But I see now it wasn't you, it was me. I thought Sophia loved me, but she just wanted what you had. Emily, we were husband and wife. There had to be something real between us. His desperation was palpable, a man clinging to a life he'd thrown away. Emily stood, her heart cold but steady. There was nothing real, she said. You used me just like Sophia used you. I'm not your safety net anymore. Footsteps crunched behind her, and Zach Coleman appeared, his tall frame casting a shadow over Ryan. He'd been at the house for dinner, a frequent guest now that Emily's parents adored him. Everything okay? Zach asked, his brown eyes narrowing as he took Ryan's kneeling form. Emily nodded, but Ryan's gaze snapped to Zach, his expression twisting with jealousy. Who the hell are you? He spat, scrambling to his feet. Emily's mine, she was my wife. His voice rose frantic, and he lunged toward Emily, reaching for her arm. Zach stepped between them, his voice low but firm. Back off, Mitchell. She's told you to leave. Don't make this worse. Ryan swung wildly, his fist grazing Zach's shoulder. But Zach was stronger, his months at the gym evident as he grabbed Ryan's wrist and pinned him against the garden fence. Enough, Zach said, his tone calm but unyielding. You don't get to hurt her anymore. Emily's heart raced, a mix of fear and gratitude. She stepped forward, touching Zach's arm. Let him go, she said softly. He's not worth it. Zach released Ryan, who slumped to the ground, his breathing ragged. Emily looked down at him, her voice final. Go, Ryan. Live your life, but stay out of mine. She turned away, Zach's hand warm on her back, and walked into the house, leaving Ryan in the dark. November 2011 brought a chill to Chicago, the skyline glittering under a blanket of early snow. Emily Harper stood at O'Hare International Airport, her suitcase packed for a trip to Colorado with Zach Coleman. They were engaged now, their love story the talk of Lincoln Park's elite. Emily, a sophomore at Northwestern, thrived in her business classes, and her confidence grew with each achievement. The scars of her past life, 6 years married to Ryan Mitchell. His betrayal with Sophia Bennett, the car accident that stole her life, were fading, replaced by a future she'd built herself. Now studying architecture, Zach shifted his dreams to business at Emily's playful urging. I don't want you designing love nests for anyone else, she'd teased, and he'd laughed, pulling her close. Their love was real, built on mutual respect, starkly contrasting the pain Ryan had caused. At the Harper family's new estate in Colorado, Emily's parents, James and Linda, were planning their permanent move, eager to support her new life. The Mitchells, once close neighbors, were a distant memory, their ties severed after Ryan's rejection at the Drake. Ever the matchmaker, Linda had taken to Zach like a son, inviting him for Sunday dinners and praising his kindness. He's a keeper, she'd whispered to Emily, her eyes twinkling. James agreed, seeing in Zach the ambition and loyalty Ryan lacked. The Harpers' relocation marked a clean break, a new chapter untainted by past promises. Emily felt a surge of gratitude for her family's love, a steady anchor through her rebirth's trials. As Emily and Zach checked in at the airport, she reflected on her journey. The radiant figure from her dream, whispering of a second chance, had been her guide, a divine gift she still didn't fully understand. But she'd honored it, choosing herself over Ryan's shadow. Her healing wasn't complete, the pain of his betrayal, the mystery of the accident lingered in quiet moments. But Zach's presence, his hand warm in hers, reminded her that love could be kind. Ready for Colorado, he asked, his brown eyes warm. Emily nodded, planting a playful kiss on his cheek. He pulled her into a deeper kiss, their laughter echoing through the terminal. They were a perfect match. Their story was about envy and hope. Meanwhile, Ryan Mitchell's life had crumbled. After his desperate plea in the garden, he'd spiraled further, working as a waiter at a dive bar in Chicago's West Loop. His dreams of college were gone, his mother's resentment a constant wound. One night during a chaotic shift, a woman stormed into the bar, her face twisted with rage. She hurled a bottle of acid at her cheating boyfriend, missing and hitting Ryan instead. The liquid seared his face, leaving scars that marked his fall. He became a ghost of himself, his once charming features hidden behind a mask of burns. Drunk patrons mocked him, calling him a monster, but Ryan barely reacted, his spirit broken. He lived in a haze, serving drinks to strangers, and his days were a blur of regret. Ryan's thoughts often drifted to Emily, to his life with her luxury cars, fine dining, a world of ease. He'd called himself a kept dog, then resenting her wealth, but now he saw the truth. He'd been lucky and thrown it away. Sophia's betrayal had opened his eyes, but it was too late. He'd tried to find Emily haunting the Harper estate, but the gates were always locked, the family gone. One evening, as he swept the bar's floor, a news report flickered on the TV, Emily and Zach engaged, boarding a private jet to Colorado. Ryan froze, his scarred hand gripping the broom. She glowed, her wavy hair shining, her smile radiant beside Zach, a man who'd taken his place. He stumbled outside the Chicago cold, biting his skin, a Bentley rolled by its sleek lines, a cruel reminder of his past. As he chased it, Ryan's eyes burned with tears, his legs weak from exhaustion. "Emily," he shouted, his voice lost in the wind. The car vanished, and he collapsed on the sidewalk snow, soaking his thin jacket. He'd lost her forever, not just to Zach, but to the life he'd destroyed with his own hands. Emily's words in the garden echoed, "Live your life." But what life was left, Ryan curled up alone, the city's hum, indifferent to his pain. Meanwhile, Emily boarded the plane, Zach's arm around her, her heart full. She'd found her second chance, and she'd never look back.